So firstly, apologies from myself. I'm McArthur, one of the co-conveners of the Malawi cross-party group. Myself and Alistair Allen were caught up in a members' business debate this evening that was very heavily subscribed, so we inevitably ran rather over time. But can I start by the usual formalities? The Honourable Consul, the Honorary Consul Dr. Peter West, who I think is joining us online, parliamentary colleagues, Alistair Allen and Sarah Boyack, friends who are joining us online, and all protocols observed. Good evening. Everyone is equally welcome to this meeting of the Malawi cross-party group. As I recognise my colleagues, Alistair Allen and Sarah Boyack. I know Sarah needs to be at another event this evening. It is again another busy evening in the Parliament, but thank you both for being with us this evening. Could I also acknowledge and congratulate one of our members, Professor Jeremy Back, on having been made an honorary fellow of the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Glasgow. Many of us will know Jeremy is head of Glasgow Dental School and emeritus professor at the University of Glasgow. He's been recognised for work with the University of Malawi College of Medicine, University of Health Sciences, and the success of the Malden project. So many congratulations. I'm delighted by that recognition. So to this evening's event, it's being recorded and will put online afterwards for those who are able to join us. Your ongoing participation signifies your consent to participation in the recording. We've got a variety of speakers here this evening, which we're looking forward to hearing from. 3 in the room and 1 joining us online. What we'll probably look to do is go through the presentations and then leave time at the end for questions, answers, and a bit of wider discussion. But if we start with apologies, I've got apologies from Alexander Stewart MSP, Katie Clark MSP, Stewart MSP, Brian Kerr of the Social Fund, and Rose McNabb. Any others to add? No. So with that, we turn to agenda item 1, approval of minutes of the last meeting. The printouts of the minutes should be with you and have been circulated electronically. I was wondering if there are any amendments to those minutes. Don't seem to be, in which case, could I have a proposal in a second, please? Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Alistair. Thanks very much indeed. Right, that takes us on to tonight's subject. Traffic collisions are one of the leading causes of death in Malawi, in common with many other countries in sub-Saharan Africa. It's tremendous that in the spirit of partnership, individuals and institutions in Malawi and Scotland have teamed up with a multidisciplinary approach to help address this in a project funded by the Medical Research Council and the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. And our first speaker this evening is Professor Liz Grant, who is the Assistant Principal Global Health at the University of Edinburgh and Director of Global Health Academy. And Professor Grant is going to offer some global context to this issue. So I hand over the mic to yourself, Professor Grant.
Thank you so much, and it's wonderful to see everyone here and everyone online as well. And as you said, and thank you for that welcome. I'm just going to speak a little bit about the global context and of road traffic collisions. I actually feel that I've been very fortunate because I was in one very recently with a broken arm, but and it makes you just realise how dangerous roads are and how important it is to be responding and understanding what happens. But actually, across the world, we're thinking, what are those big global challenges that we're facing, and how does road traffic collisions fit into this? This slide is just really trying to say that they're in context. The global health context is a complex of a triple planetary crisis, which many of us are so aware of, with climate change and biodiversity loss and pollution, but also a triple health crisis, a human health crisis, as our health indicators get so much worse, as the inequality grows, and as there's continuing emergencies that are impacting human health. And as we know, we're in this triple societal crisis of conflict, of a cost of living crisis that is affecting across the world. And something we don't often think about, that cybersecurity disinformation crisis that's really destroying the almost the fabric of society. And across this, and as you see with the slide, we've got these pieces that are coming together. How do we then position road traffic collisions? Oh, I might need you to move it forward. What am I doing wrong? Does it move, Chad? Or I love it. Here, what I can do is just very quickly a couple of important facts. And one is just that visualization. It says, imagine the entire populations of Cyprus or Mauritius just disappearing. And that is the number of people, the lives cut short every year from road traffic collisions, an estimated 1.2, 1.3 million. Because each year between 20 and 50 million people suffer non-fatal injuries as a result of road traffic collisions, many incurring disabilities, which then destroy their own lives and often destroy the lives of their families. It changes the economy of countries, where an estimate of road traffic collisions costing countries around about 3% of their GDP. Why this is important and why what this programme that we're doing is important is most traffic deaths occur in low and middle income countries. And there's multiple reasons for that. 90% though of deaths are estimated to occur. Many of the deaths are affecting vulnerable road users, pedestrians, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about tonight, cyclists and motorcyclists. And again, as we see this shift and change in societal behaviours, motorcycle accidents is one of the big issues in many low-income countries. And men are more likely to be killed than women, 3 times as likely. The next slide. So this just to give you that sort of visually. This estimated number dying, over 50% of vulnerable people impacted pedestrians, and 93% in low-income countries. When you look at that, it really does start to begin to make us feel, what do we do? This map, very quickly, it's trying to sort of present where is the big burden. The countries, as you see highlighted in shades of yellow and red, actually have the highest reported incidence rates of road traffic accidents. But there's something quite important. One of the challenges of this data is, are we actually collecting all the data from many countries where it's been much more difficult? There's many other challenges. Is the data, say, from Malawi coming through? That's one of the things that is so important as we work together in partnership. How do we get the data through? How do we ensure that we are changing the ways that that countries are recognised for what's happening? Just enter the next slide there. It's not all bad news, and this is again really important because there's a whole series of international commitments on road safety, starting from the Sustainable Development Goals, which were the goals that we in Scotland, and everyone across the world is trying to live and trying to work towards. And we're over halfway through now. The goals will end in 2030. But Sustainable Goal 3 actually has as one of the main targets, 3.6, it calls for a 50% reduction of road traffic injuries by 2030. And as noted there, actually the only specific called out type of injury in all of the goals with an explicit target. So how do we, the SDG target 11.2 is also calling for what would make a difference: safe, sustainable transport for all. But We've got a target to try and reduce the numbers, a target to push forward around safe and sustainable transport. The question is, how do you make that happen? And what happens? Because in the context of those planetary crises, in the context of the societal crisis, in the context of health systems and services being overstretched, how do we manage? What is it? Just as we talk about this, what is it that really causes death and injury in collision? We think, of course, we know, but let's actually just think a minute about that. There's a series of risk factors that are identified, and with some very clear risk factors. Using alcohol and driving, not having helmets on for pedestrians, motorcyclists, speeding, and not using seatbelts. We know those things together are some of the biggest risk factors. They account for so much. We also know then that alongside that, and you can see on the right-hand side of the slide, there's a challenge around inadequate enforcement of traffic laws. When there are traffic laws, there's also inadequate post-care, crash care, what happens once the collision happens, and vehicles being unsafe. And again, these are the things that have come up again and again, and our partners in Malawi often describe these alongside unsafe road infrastructure. So, as just a sort of last slide, really, or last couple of slides, and my left hand is not doing what it should. If we took action, what would happen? What is the potential lives saved by addressing risk factors? And this is just a very quick chart that tries to show if these things were put into place, there's actually a huge amount of success that could be achieved. And this slide really shows different countries and what would happen, what we know what would happen from this is a paper from the Lancet in 2022, just showing if we address these particular around reducing drink driving, helmet use, speeding, or non-helmet use, speeding and seatbelts. But let me just, because I'm conscious of time now, I want us to get on to this extraordinary project that we're working with and to hear the voices from here and from Malawi. Let's just focus on prevention and response. We know traffic collisions can be prevented. We know those injuries can be prevented and we can be responded to very quickly. But it requires a set of things. It requires introducing the proven interventions that we know about, evidence-based work. We know reducing speed, stopping drink driving, so the safety mechanisms. We know that there's something about safer infrastructure, incorporating road safety features into land use and transport planning. We know that enhancing post-crash care matters, and we know that setting the laws matter. And one of the things that's really important, I think, in the context of this is also thinking, if we know this is evidence, this would reduce road traffic collision, but it could also contribute to so many other responses to our planetary crisis. If we can incorporate this into our climate resilience work, if we can incorporate it into our work around reducing societal crisis. There's definitely a lot more data needed, but we know what to do and we know how to do it. And this last, as we tackle these challenges, and I'm going to hand over now to Eddie just to describe the project and also the ways in which the project, in a sense, is tackling challenges such as recognising that road safety is multi-sectorial. It's recognising we need finance, we need people together, we need legislation that works, we need to think about how to be cautious with industry. So thank you, Eddie.
Liz, thank you very much. And I think it gives a really good global overview of the challenges of road safety, which set the context beautifully for the project in particular that we're going to talk about today. For those of you in the room, you should have a small pamphlet that gives an overview you can take away later to look at. But we were funded a few years ago now to run a project in 10 schools in Malawi called Chitetezo. Chitetezo being Chewa for protected. And Chitetezo is a road traffic intervention working with schools, and working with schools particularly because road traffic injuries are the world's leading killer of children and young people. And in Malawi, it's a particular problem for people in the local communities, but also as they go to the school and walk to the school environment. And over the years, the young people that we've been working with have witnessed many deaths as they travel to school each day, mostly walking to school. It's a project which we're undertaking in partnership between several universities in Scotland, but also crucially with our partners in Malawi. So it's a collaboration between the University of Edinburgh, the University of Stirling, Glasgow School of Art, and MUBAS and Co-Convener in Blantyre, together with Jacaranda School for Orphans, which is a fantastic partner school in Malawi, which I'll talk about shortly. Children have a right to a safe environment and a right to transport to school safely. They also have a right to shape the decisions about the lives that they work in. So this study that we're taking part works really intergenerationally across people in academia, people in education, but crucially involves the voices of young people themselves in trying to shape and lobby for safer road environments for them to travel to school and in their communities. It brings together three key theoretical perspectives. So children's rights, the UN rights to the child, but also the African Convention on the Rights of the Child. And we used as an overarching framework the UN Under the Same Sky intervention, which looks at intergenerational involvement of young people as being active actors in shaping policy decisions and in making changes in the local environment. Some people might recognise this because the Under the Same Sky framework was used back in 2016, I believe, in Trinent, in Lothian, and also in Duncan in Perthshire, and to involve young people about shaping their communities. So it's a framework which is known here in Scotland, but across the world with projects in Brazil, in Singapore, and then with ourselves in Malawi and many places elsewhere. Involving young people, it's not always necessary to sit down and just talk, and we found the use of arts-based participatory methods particularly powerful in helping young people engage within the subject of road safety, but also in communicating their desires for a safer future and a safer existence to multiple actors within policy frameworks and donor frameworks and within local government and other areas. And it's also naturally, because of that, intergenerational in its approach. So Chitetezo brings all of these elements together to try and reduce the frequency of road traffic collisions and subsequent deaths and injuries among children and young people, specifically within Blantyre in Malawi. We're bringing together these three different elements which have previously been unconnected and not used in this way in this area. So rights-based youth work, road safety education, and intergenerational approaches to co-produce solutions for local development. In terms of how that works together, there's this logic model which gives a kind of high-level view of how we think this works in practice. So there's working together and led by young facilitators in Malawi. They work with a group of children in each school and to really help them understand the problem of road safety. We train these facilitators to work with them. We engage schools who provide us time, locations, and support the leadership of that. And these facilitators work with young people over a variety of sessions to introduce them to topics like the children's rights, to safety, to safe roads, to explore their environment, what safe roads look like or don't look like around their school areas, to share their perspectives and ideas through drawings and paintings, and then to raise the awareness of road safety within each of their schools, and finally to hold engagement events with multiple actors from policy, from donors, from traditional authorities, a whole range of different people who come together, and it's the young people themselves who highlight the challenges of road safety in their area using these murals, and then communicate what they think needs to change. And it's that mechanism which is believed to be powerful, and which we've got some evidence to suggest can lever change in areas where resources are very limited, and government and other agencies have to target very limited resources to specific areas. So if that works in practice, in the short term, we would hope to increase awareness of positive road safety behaviours among pupils, to increase adolescent capability to engage in decision-making with adults, and to increase local government awareness of road safety, infrastructure problems and potential solutions, and to increase engagement between young people and governments. And that would lead in process, we believe, to fewer accidents happening and fewer deaths, and greater engagement between young people and local government, and ultimately fewer deaths and greater economic productivity as well. So a relatively novel intervention, which if it works as we predict it has done, we've got some evidence to show that it does, could have significant benefits for the local community. In 2018 to 2019, we worked with one school in Blantyre in Malawi, Jacaranda School for Orphans. It's a really, really inspirational school, which was set up by Maria Silva, and who at that time was living in Malawi, and at that time living in America. And she was the au pair for Ricky Lake. And Marie was donating an awful lot of her money to support her community, because at that time the HIV/AIDS crisis was really decimating the local community in which she lived in. And Marie used her family ground to open this school, which has grown and grown in years since then, and has become a very inspirational school for many young people, and continues to focus on children who have got very complex home situations, many of them still HIV/AIDS positive. And they have a very strong with Jacaranda School for Orphans and piloting the Chitetezo intervention to see in practice what's this feasible to do and what would happen. So here on the left, a pictorial journey to take you through the logic model that I presented earlier. We trained peer facilitators who were Clement and Ruben, who had just finished finished school and were doing a year of service at the school before they were going on to their own projects and further education. And they were very talented artists. So they were the peer facilitators who worked with a group of 8 to 10 young people in delivering Chitetezo and working with these young people to look at their local road situation, what their journey to school was like, and to envisage murals, which you can see there. They're about 2.5 meters high, about 3 meters long on plywood, top left-hand corner. You can see them beginning to prepare one. So they're substantial pieces of art. And the young people themselves really ran with this project and created a whole narrative. The girl, the school child in the top left-hand picture with the kind of thinking bubbles coming out, was one of the young people in the group, Jememwe. And they told a story through these 4 murals, which they then shared in the engagement event. So in the top left-hand corner, you can see Jememwe talk with the narrative the young people gave was of Jememwe going to school one day and saying, look, this is terrible, look, the situations of our roads, we have to be able to do something about it. And then in the top right-hand picture, they depicted the current challenges they experience on their journey to school. And you can see exactly the sorts of issues that Liz was pointing out from what we know from the literature. So poorly maintained roads, overcrowded vehicles, badly damaged vehicles, road infrastructure such as pavements and lighting not working, potholes in the roads, the zebra crossing, the road crossings were faded, and vehicles on the wrong side of the road, poor driving due to alcohol. And they talked their way through these, and these are the challenges we face every day as we go to school and around our local community. And in that picture, you can see Jememwe on the left-hand side near the lamppost, travelling to school. And then what the young people did was they imagined, well, what would a safe future look like? What do we need to happen? And in the bottom left, or the middle picture in the bottom, you can see the resolution of many of these challenges which they highlighted. So the roads are being fixed, the lighting is being fixed, there are better pavements, the road infrastructure is there, the vehicles are well maintained on the right side of the road markings are present. And inspirationally, I felt they said that there were some things that they recognised that they could do themselves. So you can notice some of the characters in the mural have got the Jacaranda lilac school uniform on. So, you know, whether they're in the road safety crossing or they're helping with fixing the roads, they said we have a role really to try and do our part to help improve things. But in the narrative that they said in the engagement event, there are things we cannot do. So we can't fix the roads, we can't fix the school, fix the road infrastructure, we can't change driver behaviour. So we need to have this multifaceted approach. There are things that pedestrians and young people can do, but they definitely need government and funding to do some infrastructure and behavioural change improvements as well. And finally, they created a mural which we hadn't requested at all, but I think highlights some of the spirit of these very engaging young people, is that they saw themselves in having a role in going into other schools and other communities to really share this message about the challenge of road safety and to try and educate their peers in these issues as well. So they created over several weeks talking about children's rights, talking about road safety, and understanding the challenges and trying to depict what should happen. We spent several weeks doing this work. And they then presented them over 2 different sessions in Blantyre to a different group of actors from Malawi police, Malawi traffic authorities, traditional leaders, local authority leaders, councillors, and people from the fire brigade, education authorities, all came to listen to these really inspiring young people present their narratives through these artistic exhibitions, artistic murals that they had developed. And it happened in a way in which, if I'm absolutely honest, I hadn't completely expected. So I was just incredibly pleased that these young people had taken part in all of this so far. What we hoped was it would engage this real intergenerational dialogue. And in fact, Councillor Peckley, who's the gentleman with the red tie and the image on the left, stood up at one of these events and said, "Young people, I'm so proud of you. You've highlighted exactly the problems. You've done incredibly well. And I wish, if only I wish, we could do something about it. But we've very little resource. And it's really hard. So, you know, we think you've done very well, but if there was the money, I would have the people from the council to do the work." And at that moment, a donor from Total Malawi stood up, and who was from the philanthropic executive director from Total Malawi, and said, "Well, Councillor Peckley, if you're willing to bring the people and the resource of the council to this, we're willing to finance the changes that the young people say need to be made." And there's 3 weeks later, you can see that the road markings in the area just nearby Jacaranda and the street lighting were being fixed, so that young people highlighted the priorities that they felt needed to be done, and Councillor Peckley's there making sure that the work is done appropriately. So we were delighted that in fact that logic model of young people understanding the problems, developing solutions, and then having that intergenerational interaction really works in practice. We've then been funded by the Medical Research Council to expand this project to 10 schools within Blantyre, and really to do much higher quality data collection around about the impact of this work, and to really see does it work in practice and what are the differences that this make. And at this moment, I'd like to pass on to my colleague Lusizi Kambalame from Malawi University of Business and Applied Science to tell us about where that process is at today.
All right, thank you, Eddie, and hello to all. My name is Lusizi Kambalame. I hope you can hear me. I'm a lecturer at the Malawi University of Business and Applied Sciences in Malawi, and I am one of the collaborators working on this project in Malawi. So we are working with 10 schools in Blantyre Urban, and these are primary schools. Of those schools, we only have 1 private school, which is Jacaranda School of the Orphans. The other 9 are public schools around Blantyre. And in each of those schools, we have different numbers in terms of student population, but at the moment, we have worked in 6 schools, And of those schools, all the schools in total have got a population of over 15,000 students, with one of the schools in Kolokoti Primary School having a population of over 5,000, about 5,440 students in total. And the way that we work, our framework is that we work with 8 students who are the ones that develop the mural that Eddie was talking about. We call them the road safety champions. But apart from that, we also work with other young people within the schools. And we have what we call peer facilitators, who are young people from Jacaranda School of Orphans, who are in their year of service after completing their secondary school. So they usually have sort of like a gap year. And in that gap year, they come and help us out with the project. Some of these peer facilitators are those that were part of the pilot project. And so we're sort of like continuing with the team that we had worked with on the pilot project. So the first block, we worked with 2 schools, Jacaranda School of Orphans and Chitetezo Primary School. And the second block, we're working with Kolokoti Primary School, St. Maria Goret Primary School, Bangwe Catholic Primary School, and Kanjedza. And then we'll move on to 4 more schools, somewhat around July or September. And these will be HHI Primary Schools, Catholic Institute Primary School, Namoa Primary School, and Makata Sisepi Primary School. Thank you. Move on to the next slide, please. All right, and so, sorry?
Has that moved on?
So,
Are you?
Yes, I can see it. So that's the map just showing the study area where the schools are located within Blantyre Urban. We can move on to the next slide. All right, so in terms of the process of the Chitetezo project, we first of all recruit participants, and we recruit participants that are in different categories. We've got 8 students who are the road safety champions, and these are the ones that take part in painting the mural on behalf of the school. But apart from that, we also do recruit others that we engage in terms of data collection. We do interviews, we do focus group interviews, we do walking interviews. And so some of the students take part in that. But we also do school-wide presentations. That is, we introduce the project to the school, and we talk about, have a discussion around what the project is and what role, apart from the road safety champions, the other students in the school can actually take. But we also have meetings with parents through the Parents and Teachers Association, the committee, and other groups. We've got other groups in the school, women groups, the management committees. We also have the school development committees that we actually also work with. And so we hold meetings with all this to seek approval for the project, but also to seek consent from the parents. And thereafter, we move on to the next phase, which is training of the participants, who are doing the work, who do the walking interviews, be part of the mural development. But we also do some mapping with them, because as part of the project, I think that part Jen is really going to talk about that. We are doing some mapping of hotspots. And areas where the young people feel that they're safe or on the road, or they're not safe. And so we need them to also help us collect data as part of the intergenerational focus that this project has, to help us collect data in terms of road traffic collisions. We call it a near miss board, where they come back to school, or all students can actually be able to report near miss incidents, road collisions or accidents that they've actually witnessed, and then they can come back and report on the board, so that we're able to understand which areas are safer or which ones are not for the young people on their way to school or around their community. And so we also do what we call the pre data collection, and this involves firstly walking interviews, where we select about 6 students, and we go on a journey with them, the route that they use going to school or back from school. So we allow them to take us through that journey, what happens, what experiences they have every day on the road. And we allow them to let us know which areas they're safe in, which ones they do not feel safe in, and why they do not feel safe, and their experiences on the road. And we also allow them to take photos of what their experiences are. And we also do the interviews, one-on-one interviews, talking about their experiences in terms of road safety. Can we move on to the next slide, please? And thereafter, we also do what we actually call the mural development. So in the mural development, it is now putting the ideas that they have about road safety from their experience, but also from the experiences of the students, the school-wide, if they've got any ideas or concepts, because we encourage them to engage other students so that they're able to put together a concept that is representative of the experiences of the young people in the schools. And so in the mural development, the young people are able to put to boards and paint, firstly, what the situation is like, the current situation in within their school and their community, and as far as road safety is concerned, and the picture of what is ideal for them in terms of road safety within their school and also within their community. So in this work, this is where the peer facilitators who are from Jacaranda School of Orphans help them to be able to transfer those concepts onto the board, so that they're able to develop the murals. And then thereafter, we do an intergenerational engagement, where we call together these young people to present their murals to other stakeholders. And we hope that from this, there's going to be an intergenerational dialogue about road safety, and perhaps even be able to reach out to policymakers so that they're able to focus on perhaps what matters to the young people. But in a way, the intergenerational engagement is also a way of letting the young people understand that they've got a role to play, and that their voice matters in things that matter to them, such as road safety. So matters of their health and well-being, they should be able to be engaged and involved, and that they can be able to engage with policymakers to be able to have discussions about things that matter to them. And then the last part of the project is the post data collection, which we now almost like go through the very same process of data collection that we had in the pre-phase, where we do the walking interviews with the road safety champions, and then we do interviews with selected students within the schools, and we also do the mapping. The idea is to see if there are any changes, or especially in the experiences of the young people, hopefully perhaps also in some of the infrastructure, perhaps within the school and in their community. due to the work that these young people have been doing, the intergenerational dialogue, the interface that they've had and the engagement that they've had with policymakers and other stakeholders. If you can move on to the next slide. All right, so there are some of the pictures of our what we've done so far and our approach. Using some of the data collection methods and also ways in which we're able to engage the young people. And you can see that those are pictures from some of the murals that have already been developed, and also the engagement that we've actually had with the stakeholders. And so we do hope that through art, the young people can actually be able to express themselves, especially in a situation where the resources are constrained, and be able to put to the stakeholders how they feel or what they feel ought to be done in the best way possible. We hope that this arts-based approach could actually be the one that actually catalyzes a discussion between the young people and stakeholders or policymakers. So those are some of the pictures from the last intergenerational dialogue that we had, which was in February, where the young people now presented their murals to the stakeholders. And we also had a panel discussion that involved stakeholders from the Directorate of Road Traffic Services, some of them from the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Transport, other also players from the CSOs and companies. And in the way forward, we hope that we will be able to have meaningful engagement with intergenerational dialogue through the intergenerational dialogue. But we also hope that there are a lot of lessons that we're going to learn in terms of how we can actually work with young people. Thank you very much. I pass on to my colleague, Jane.
Just to note, those online were able to see both the speaker and the slides. It's just us that were close to do it. Yes, you could pass the mic over, please.
Okay, I'll just get started on that. Okay, so hello everyone, my name is Dickie. And in this final presentation, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a different part of the project where we're using spatial data analysis to explore road traffic collisions in Malawi. And this piece of work is in collaboration with the Directorate for Road Traffic and Safety Services Malawi. So I'm going to refer to them as the DRTSS, which is even still quite a mouthful. But the pretty maps that you're going to see in this presentation were largely made by our research assistant, Liam, who couldn't be here today. So just a little bit of context then, in the pilot study that Eddie was talking to you about a little bit before, we were given access to a data set from the DRTSS. And it was a road traffic collision data set that reported accidents across Malawi and also provided some context around those accidents. And originally when we looked at the data set, we thought that we would use that as a time series analysis in order to see if there was any kind of, well, it's an evaluation to see if our Chitetezo project was successful in its intervention. But when we looked at the data set in a bit more detail, we saw that there was actually locational data provided. So we thought perhaps there would be an opportunity for some spatial data analysis in order to identify some of the most hazardous roads in Malawi, particularly the Blantyre area, but also look at severity of accidents and also maybe look at whether or not these changed over time as well as space. But it was going to be much more challenging than we anticipated. So first of all, it's a very extensive data set. So even between 2013 and 2022, there was over 26,000 data points. In addition to that, it wasn't geographical coordinates that were provided. So mapping wasn't going to be easy. Whilst we were given some geographical data in terms of area and sector. It was a description of where the accidents were happening that we had to deal with. So I don't know if you can see at the back, but some of the descriptions are very vague, like the electric pole on such and such a road. Nevertheless, we thought we would persevere, and with an amazing team of Malawian geocoders alongside our researchers, we managed to provide XY coordinates using these descriptions for the Blantyre area. It was a fantastic piece of work. It took over 6 months, and we managed to locate about 86% of all the collisions that were reported during that period of time. So with that data, we then visualised it using software. Some of you might be familiar with QGIS, open source mapping tools, basically to visualise the data in form of maps and then conduct some spatial data analysis. Oops. So very quickly, in the interest of time, what have we done with the data so far? Well, we've looked at a few visualization techniques to see where the crashes actually happen in the Blantyre district. We've looked at the frequency, so where the most crashes are happening. We've used more statistical or analytical approaches to look at crash hotspots rather than just the visualizations. And we've also looked at things like how these crash locations change over time, and also how severe some of these accidents actually are. So I don't have time to really go through these maps in any detail, unfortunately, but if you're interested in looking at them, especially those of you down there who maybe can't see the points, we're very happy to share the slides and also tell you more about it. But very quickly, as a sort of flavour of what we've done, I've got a few here to show you. So this one is a very simple point distribution map, literally just showing where the collisions are happening in the Blantyre district. But that obscures some of the frequency data, so crashes, multiple crashes are happening at the same place, then you don't see that. So a different way we can visualise that type of data is to do things, for example, this map, which is actually using the thickness of lines over segmented or aggregated data to see where more crashes are happening. But really, what we wanted to do is more specifically based analysis, and this is where hotspot analysis comes in. And this allows us to identify clusters of high values and low values. So really clusters of accidents across the area. And this is what we've done here. This is an aggregated data set then. So this is all the data from 2013 through to 2022, all in one map. And what we can see here, for those of you that are familiar with Blantyre, is that we're seeing these hotspots, perhaps unsurprisingly, in Blantyre Central Business District and Limby Central Business District. But what we can see is actually patterns in other places starting to emerge. So this is the kind of the line that goes between these two areas. I think it's the Kamuzu Highway. What we're seeing is emerging patterns around roundabouts. So there are lots of collisions that are happening around roundabouts in this particular area. Now, that's very static, I guess. That's all the data. It's just looking at the spatial side of things. It's not bringing into consideration the temporal aspect. All the data from across those years. So what we can do is we can split it up by year, month, seasonality. But again, when you're just comparing those maps, it's very much a visual appraisal. So we can also do some analytical approaches that are looking at how these spaces are changing over time. So this is more of a spatial temporal analysis. Here it's called space-time trends. And again, you probably can't see from over there, but the kind of overarching message here is that the dark red colours, so around the Limby Market area and Central Business District, these are persistent collisions. So over time, we're not seeing much change in frequency. It's quite static. It's high areas of collision, but it's not changing. Whereas the Blantyre Central Business District area, which is that kind of orangey colour, this is what they've called intensifying hotspots. And so we're seeing areas here where the rate of collision is on the increase. So that's another quite interesting piece of work to look at. Now, again, that's not telling us much about the severity of the different accidents. That's just showing us where they are. When we start to map the severity, which is provided in the supplementary data, we start to see even more interesting patterns. So yes, the central business districts are high areas of collisions, but you'll see they're coloured blue here. And what that's actually telling us is that although there's lots of collisions, they're actually fairly low impact, they're low severity. Whereas the red areas, that's where we're starting to see the more severe incidents. Again, perhaps not surprising, these are along some of the busy highways. So the one on the left-hand side is the road up to the airport, for example. Hopefully most of you will know that these are fast roads and they're tarmacked. So actually the kind of the impact of these crashes are much more severe. Oops. Go back. Go back one. There we go. So just to bring that back to the Chitetezo project itself, again, we can then map on the skills that we're looking at within the Chitetezo project. And I think it's quite telling the importance of this research when we look at this map and see that over half of the schools that we're looking at are situated close to areas of high severity in terms of the road traffic collisions that have been mapped. So something certainly needs to be done. I'm not going to dwell on these maps in too much detail, but I just wanted to highlight the beauty of this kind of spatial data is that we can look at multiple scales. So we can look at the spatial patterns of collisions across the Blantyre area, but we can also zoom in to high resolution, high detailed areas. And this is just showing an area in Limby where we know there's lots of accidents, but fairly low impact. It's around a roundabout. So again, slow, probably quite slow traffic there, but nevertheless, an area where lots of collisions are happening. I'm going to skip that one in the interest of time. And this one is actually using some extra data that we have around the type of accident that's happened. So again, this little map is a segment of the highway, the M1 going to the airport. And on the left-hand side, you can see severity mapped. So there's some quite high severity accidents happening in that area. If we look at the other side, and the right-hand side, and we look at the accident type, we can see there, well, some of you can see that the vehicles versus pedestrians are the highest, or the majority of the accidents that are happening. And I don't know if you can see, but on this stretch of road, there's a zebra crossing, there's also a bar. And so we can start to interpret some of this information, saying, well, these highly severe accidents are happening on highways, very close to zebra crossings and bars. Alcohol might be an issue here, could be the cause. Perhaps a simple solution would be to put some railings between the road and the pedestrians when they're leaving the bar and trying and pushing them down to cross it appropriate areas. So this is how we can start to build up a picture of what's actually potentially causing some of these collisions. So what have we done with the data so far? Well, we travelled to Malawi February, I believe, and we presented some of these maps to the DRTSS and other people, other actors, so road users, third sector, as well as traffic enforcement representatives at an event in Lilongwe. And we posed a series of questions and asked for feedback around the data that we presented. So we really wanted to hear whether they agreed with our interpretation of the data, but also to get their perspectives around behaviours, responsibilities, really around data quality, because looking at our analysis, we could tell that the data quality wasn't brilliant in certain places and at certain times. And then more generally around some challenges and solutions for some of these issues based on the data. And okay, so we also then wanted to just highlight the importance and the benefits of doing this kind of spatial data analysis with the people in the room. And we talked about all the different benefits, but really the important thing is the outcomes for the Blantyre area and for Malawi more generally, and how this data could be used for targeted interventions around these hotspot areas, reduction in fatalities, because we have this information about the severity of accidents and where they are happening, so areas and interventions might be prioritised. And then, of course, the reduction in economic burden, because there are wider implications of these collisions around healthcare and loss of income for people who are involved. And if I can ever get this to work, I'm now going to just pass it back to Eddie to tell you what our next steps are.
So the ongoing work with the schools is happening as we speak, and Lusizi has talked us through. We'll be concluding that work in April 2025. And we'll be doing more of the data visualization specifically around the schools, as well as multiple other forms of data collection. But as Jen's pointed out, really we've discovered an opportunity through the use of this data, and particularly with geospatial data, to really improve the collection and reporting of road traffic collision data. It's known that the Malawi road traffic collision data is an underreporting the true situation. And part of that is very evident through the analysis of the data that we conducted, where there were periods of data which were just blank within that. There's a real potential to improve the quality of data collection using cheap app type interventions with Malawi traffic police, where they could collect the data electronically, geolocate it at the time of the location, so we didn't have to do the intense work. You couldn't repeat this work on an ongoing basis. We need to do something to enable the road traffic police to collect it on an ongoing basis. And if we manage to do that, then we can improve road traffic reporting, which would be good for at the policy level. But you could also potentially very cheaply get near real-time understanding of emerging hotspots that Jen has highlighted, therefore allowing the road traffic police to target their very limited resources to emerging hotspot areas and trying to reduce any emerging problems in that area too. So we've got prototypes of this. It could be relatively cheaply done because we don't need airtime. It could be a device used out in the roads and then brought back to a police station, transferred by Wi-Fi. And we'll be currently looking for funding opportunities to develop this and to evaluate this and its effectiveness in practice. That brings us to the end. I'm aware we've gone on late. We started a bit late. So thank you for your patience. Thank you very much indeed.
A lot of ground covered, and I'm conscious that there was a degree of self-discipline being exercised there in rushing through slides, etc., that we could have spent a lot longer on. So thank you very much indeed. I'm going to throw it open to questions or comments at this stage. And wants to get it. Yes.
This is working. Two quick questions. As someone familiar with Malawi but ignorant of this fascinating discipline. Those graphs were really interesting, and how do you make those? Is it a special software? Is it special expertise? Is that being shared with your Malawian counterparts as you go so that they can also do that? And I guess I'm also wondering, is this how we approach it in Scotland as well? How do we understand the similar issues in Scotland? Mentioned and comparing to.
Sure, I can take that one. So yes, we do use special mapping software. It's commonly used in geography. We are using QGIS, which is an open source piece of software, because a lot of the other software that is more commonly used in this country is expensive. So we're not training the Malawians up in actually sort of creating the map. It's quite specialist technique, but we have been creating protocols. We've been creating class, what do we call them? We've got materials to teach the school children about spatial data and maps, and the data inputters we talk through and train them up on how to do that kind of analysis. The next step for the app is something that we would like to do, is actually train up people in Malawi to be able to do this mapping themselves. And in Scotland, yes, this kind of mapping technique is used commonly.
So from a sustainability point of view, because the software is open source, and if we were able to get the app technology for the police to enter the data, it would be a case of training people in the DRTS to use the open source software, but it would be quite sustainable because there isn't a charge that goes along with that. So the relative cost of this and sustainability is high. The relative cost of global sustainability.
And I suspect in the Scottish context, you're going to have reporting requirements for a whole host of reasons, from insurance through to that being a fatality or a serious incident to which the emergency services have done what.
And you just picked up into the other things, the potential is that if we're able to develop the services that you can then link with healthcare data sets as well. And that in terms of communicating, because Malawi does not have an emergency response service. So when these collisions happen, often it's well-wishers will be relied on to take people to hospitals. But you will be able to then link very clearly the road traffic collision data with the health outcome data, so it could have multiple uses.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, I mean, it's so important standing on its own, because this is about lives saved, it's about children's lives saved, this is about reducing injury. But also, it's recognising that this is also part of the whole activity towards building climate resilience, towards building economic resilience, towards building health resilience, towards tackling those multiple challenges that are coming in. And I think if we can see that in a way the road traffic collisions and the crisis is amplifying for us, it's giving us a visual picture of multiple things going wrong, but also that and this is what a number of our Malawi colleagues are saying, if we can respond to that, it's really showing how we can bring together multiple different sectors to do something that would lead to sustainability, but also change the whole sort of structure of society and look at future health.
I just wanted to add that through this process of actually looking at the patterns across space and time, what we have identified is, as I mentioned before, issues in data quality. There's a very high chance that these road traffic collisions are being significantly underreported. But the data that we're using are the data that are being used by the World Health Organization and being reported globally around the kind of frequency and severity. So it's really, I think, a call as if we to try and improve this data quality, which would then have quite a big impact on the other sectors that Liz has been talking about.
I suppose the success you have then encourages a greater level of reporting, so not about a virtuous cycle. But I know we've got Eve Hartswood, who's online and wants to ask a question. Eve, are you able to turn your mic on and speak to the room?
Good evening. Yes, Eve Hartswood, a member of the Church of Scotland, who has a multiplicity of partnerships with the National Church in Malawi. And I'm aware that the Scotland-Malawi partnership also has a multiplicity of partnerships. And thinking about how there could be a prevention response that could be initiated through these perhaps small interventions that could be multiplied through these partnerships. Do you have any evidence that solar or rechargeable lights or visibility jackets might help children as they're walking to and from school? And is this something that we could perhaps amplify through these partnerships that exist?
I see what I'm going to add.
Eve, thank you very much. And it's a very relevant question. It's evident on observation when you're in Malawi that driving at night, particularly, and there's not a lot of street lighting, particularly along these arterial highways where Jen has shown us the road traffic collisions happen a lot. It would certainly help if there was lighting. I mean, evidence, I'm not sure I can give you other the broader evidence of what we know about road safety globally, which is to be visible and reduces the chances of collisions. That holds in Malawi as it holds anywhere else. So anything that provides reflection or light for people travelling along the road would certainly be a useful thing. What's very clear also is that there's been a lot of investment in road infrastructure. People from different countries, the World Bank and others, but there's not been the same investment in road infrastructure architecture. So they build very, very busy highways, but don't separate the pavement from the road. So people are walking along the roads with no separation. So there's great investment in the road itself, but little investment in separating pedestrian from the road traffic person. So certainly visibility is important, and would be something local communities could do and would be very, very supportive. Larger donor issues and funding issues about separating pedestrians from these very busy lorries that hurtle down these motorways in the dark is really crucial as well.
And presumably there won't be a resistance in terms of donor. Eve, do you want to come back in?
Just to say, my experience of rural Malawi is that the children will spend 2 hours walking to and 2 hours walking home from school on busy rural roads which don't have lighting or infrastructure. So very much looking to try and enact something that would help their safety, that could be done easily.
There are lots of nodding heads. And we've got time for a couple more. There you go.
Thanks very much. Really enjoyed those presentations. Liz mentioned earlier on about the relevance of the increasing number of motorcycles. I wonder what information you have on the types of vehicles. I mean, you see heavily overloaded minibuses, you see lorries carrying about 80 people in the back. I wonder if you have any evidence about type of vehicle and legislation that might also help.
So the DRTSF data set it comes down to one of these issues of quality, because although in the framework there was spaces on the spreadsheet, if you like, to give that exactly that sort of information, it was often missing because it wasn't a mandatory field to be completed. So we can't give you precise statistics of that, but it highlights exactly that issue, highlights why we need to have a system like the one that we wish to be part of developing. But when we were there in February speaking to the Department of Road Traffic Safety Services, they were predicting that within a short number of years, the deaths from motorcycles, where people are not wearing helmets for driving and without licenses and perhaps without any training, will exceed the current deaths of pedestrians. So as the economy grows slightly and people are able more to have a motorbike, which often they need it to sustain their livelihoods, we're going to see an increase in deaths.
Yeah, just to back up, because we do have the evidence, obviously, from effectively the emergency departments in Malawi and King Elizabeth and Lilongwe, and also in other countries like McArthur or Malawi Hospital in Uganda, that this increase is happening really exponentially. And challenges because of legislation, challenges because of cheap imports of motorbikes. That's been one of the biggest changes right across the whole eastern southern part of Africa, and more people being able to afford it. So it's again just this emphasis that this is all part of a cycle and it's all connected. So we do need to be responsive right across the board.
Thanks. I can see Lusizi's got her hand up as well. I don't know whether this in relation to the previous question or this one, but Lusizi, come in.
Yes. So in relation to the previous question, there is data that we've collected from especially from the young people, and just drawing back to how from their experiences, they have been able to say certain things, more especially those that relate to behavior, pedestrian behavior or motorist behavior, that I think might answer some of the questions that we put forward. One is the idea that yes, the infrastructure is not right in most of the roads, but also the other thing relates to how motorists behave. And one of the things is visibility, that most of the times the young people may not be seen on the roads. There are cars that are driving that have got things piled up high, and people do not even know that such vehicles are coming in maybe around the corner or something like that. But there are rather very important issues that were raised by the young people. Like some of the young people have decided that they're not going to use the roads because they do not feel safe on the roads, and they'll rather use shortcuts. but there's a different problem that comes in with the shortcuts altogether. So yes, lighting would actually be good. Reflective jackets for the young people would actually be good. But most of these young people are usually staying away from the roads anyway, because they do not feel safe anyway. You know, so there are a number of issues that I think is coming out even from the walking interviews, what these young people are actually saying. I think in the murals from the pilot study and even now, one of the things that they managed to raise are broken lights on the street lights on the roads. So clearly the issue of visibility and lighting is something that for them, they feel is an issue based on their experiences on the roads. I know that there are going to be some solutions which may require multi-sectoral approach, because apart from the lights just coming in on the streets, you also know that they definitely in 1 or 2 days, they might be taken off the streets. So it's something that requires all hands on deck, I should say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGee, and apologies for not bringing you in earlier. We've got, it's going to have to, I think we have, well, I'll tell you what, I'll take both questions, but I think that will have to draw to its close then, because we should really be finishing up at 8 o'clock. Dr. Bassett first, and then gentlemen in front.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the speakers for spotlighting the global burden of road traffic collisions and injuries so caused. And you quite rightly, 90% of the deaths from road traffic collisions globally are in low and middle income countries. But for each person that dies, 2 to 3 have life-changing injuries. And this is not only is your project being presented to us tonight a great demonstration of multidisciplinary, intergenerational approach that you've adopted, but also we should think of the road traffic collision prevention being an integrated part of the whole health journey. And you know, you'll forgive me for saying, as an emergency medicine specialist in Scotland, who has a vital emergency medicine project in Malawi since COVID, and removed from the funding stream, but we're fighting to try and get that funding back. You know, there is no way to take these people apart from 1 or 2 units in the whole nation. So what we're trying to do is support that reduction in death and life-changing injury by developing a national network of quality emergency care in Malawi. And access to quality emergency care is not a privilege, it's a basic human right of everyone on the planet. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thanks very much. The gentleman in the front row, if you could come up to use the microphone there, there's a button there, you press that.
Thank you for giving me the opportunities, and apologies for joining me late because of the traffic. But my question relates to the previous question. I think the observation regarding the use of motorbikes. I think motorbikes. For me, it's to do motorbikes. One, but there's also the influx of the bicycle taxis or not other motorbikes. So I'm sorry, I might have touched on that before I came. But I noticed that most school children now are depending on that as a means of transport, and that I don't know how safe they are. I for one, I've seen how careless these, especially these cyclists are. Apart from kids who just walking on the street, but they are riding. Maybe sometimes it's bicycle will carry maybe 3 or 4 or 5 kids. And I said, can the government do something? Is somebody watching? This is an accident, what will happen? So I'm just wondering whether the study has any recommendations, anything that can stand out that can address that particular problem. I think I take out of interest really. my point that question is still able to come.
If it's very, I'm sorry, having arrived late, I'm conscious that I've put time pressure on, but I do need to leave at 15:15, so I have to go. That would be excellent. Thank you very much. Eddie, do you want to pick up?
Yep.
Sorry, overall.
Very good, so thank you very much. And I'm happy to speak with you after, absolutely. And you're absolutely right to highlight the cycle taxi challenge and problem. These are, and in a Scottish context, in my youth we call them backies, but they're used by many Malawians as a mode of transport, and it's happening within a context. We would do it in a quiet street, but it's happening in the context where these lorries are going past, where the children have not got any safety helmets often there, and it is a real challenge. We're not collecting data specifically on that group, but we will go back and look at what our young people have to say about that. So we'll take that back to the young people and ask them what their thoughts on that are in particular. We all recognise the problem and having seen it ourselves. So thank you very much, and happy to pick up with you after today's session.
And in relation to the point about emergency getting support, I suppose that was more a statement of where we are and the problems that are.
Yeah, thank you, Barry.
Absolutely, back up everything that Dr. Glasson says, and we're aware of each other's projects, more work partnership going forward.
So, listen, apologies again that it's been slightly truncated, but can I ask you please to put your hands together again, we're happy to forward about that. Father of son who's currently finishing third year in maths and statistics, the final presentation from Jen there is one I probably need to get hold of and take back home. Tick a number of boxes for him. Thank you very much indeed for that. With that, all left to say really is the next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday the 25th of September. Stuart and Paul will circulate details ahead of time. Copies of the presentations can be circulated as well for those who are interested. And with that, I just extend my thanks to all of you for attending, both in person and also online. And look forward to the next meeting after the summer recess. Thanks very much.